Hello and welcome to Probe, the talk show where we probe into God's Word about our daily practical issues. We have been talking about abuse in the last 3 episodes. In case of child abuse, the victim is at a double disadvantage because the one who has to protect the child is the abuser. Look out for these victims. What are the signs of abuse you should look out for? Let's find out from Dr. Latha Christie as she talks to Dr. Nirmala Abraham about child abuse in God's cosmic story.
The Lord Jesus loves children, and He gave a strict warning to those who make them stumble. Unfortunately, because we live in a fallen world, we do not always treat one another with love and concern. Dependent children are especially vulnerable. Child abuse consists of intentional or deliberate words or acts of commission or omission by parents, guardians, or caregivers. Child abuse, whether physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, or sexual, has a painful and permanent effect on the child. The trauma from the abuse often carries into adulthood. Many adults who were victims of abuse as children suffer from depression, anxiety, eating disorders, alcoholism, drug abuse, etc. Healing from the effects of child abuse take many years and sometimes even a lifetime. Dr. Christie, I am delighted to welcome you once again to the sets of Probe. We have come to the last episode of this season. We've enjoyed this season with you.
It was really great.
Yes, and this last episode is about child abuse. Now, I see that in your book, When the Flame Flickers, Emerging from Marital Abuse. In this book, you have mentioned something called intergenerational cycle of violence. Now, tell us about it and how it affects the children.
The domestic violence, what we have been going on discussing over the last few episodes, has a tremendous effect on children.
Yes.
Because children observe it and they are the silent observers.
Right.
Either they take part in that or they observe it.
And sometimes they feel they may be the guilty ones.
Reason for it, it based on the age of the child and how long they have been exposed to that.
Right.
How much they are affected is based on that. The study says a boy who had been seeing his mother getting abused by his father day after day, he becomes an abuser when he grows up.
Yes.
And a girl who observes it, a mother being submissive like a doormat, taking everything on her, she becomes, okay, this is the norm. And even when her husband abuses her, she keeps quiet.
She becomes a battered one.
So this generational cycle of violence repeats again and again. So that is meant by intergenerational cycle of violence. Unless somebody takes an intentional steps to break it,
Yes.
it cannot be broken on its own. For example, a boy, I remember he was one of our friend's son. He was telling, but he was also abusing his wife. So when that case came to me, he was telling when his father used to hit his mother, he used to hide. He and his sisters, all 6 of them, used to hide in a corner and they used to have dreams that his mother might be killed one day. So they used to be scared, but they couldn't do anything. He had many times the trauma of post-traumatic stress disorder, people call, that he used to often hear voices within him, his mother screaming and his father going to come and drunk with alcohol when he's going to hit her. So this was repeating in his mind again and again, and he said to me, when I became big, I was not knowing that I was also abusing my wife and my children were observing just like I was observing.
Isn't that really tragic how history repeats
yes,
itself?
and even his sisters were not in a happy marriage. I feel this abusive cycle has to be broken. It repeats generation after generation.
God, when He created this world, He created a paradise on earth.
Yes.
It was not meant to be like this. And the Bible says children are a heritage from the Lord. But unfortunately, today children face all this abuse and it has crept into God's cosmic story because Satan doesn't want it to be a paradise on earth. So he comes in and he tempts people to do all these kind of things. Tell us about the nature of the abuse that children face.
See, normally abuse is perpetrated by sometimes even by parents or caregivers or by relatives, the one whom children trust. And also sometimes by outsiders like drivers with whom we send the children,
Yes.
or by
We have to be so
tuition
careful.
teacher. See, the parents have to be very careful with the red flags.
Right.
When a child comes and slightly tells something, like even in the domestic violence, as I said, if a victim tells something, you cannot brush it aside. You cannot brush when a child is telling. It's a child, and so might be it's telling something extra. No. If a child tells something is happening where it's a driver or it's a caregiver or something, you should be very careful. I read about a story of a father and his daughter. He has put it in the net. She was just 3 years old and she was the most beautiful child. She was given to a caretaker and the caretaker abused her sexually, physically, in every way for 5 years.
Was it a male caretaker?
Yes, it's a child and he abused her for 5 years in the most terrible way, and the child tried to tell and the parents were too busy. It happened in the US and they were busy in their own jobs and they never even bothered to listen to the child. They didn't have time to listen to the child. And then the child grew big and so the child got schizophrenia. And the girl was affected with schizophrenia and she used to shout, and people never thought that it is a post-traumatic stress disorder because they never imagined that she is an adult victim of sexual abuse and she was put in the mental asylum. And even there people never treated her for
what happened as a child,
post-traumatic stress disorder, like an adult victim of sexual abuse. They never treated her for that, and nobody was there to even listen to her story. And she was treated and again by electric shocks and others because they thought it's a schizophrenia. And finally at the age of 33 she took her life by suicide in that mental asylum.
And then how did they come to know that this is what happened?
Because she has portrayed in her figures again and again the pictures,
drawings.
Her drawings have been kept now in many of the
Sites
exhibitions and others
exhibitions.
because she has beautifully written there, and one of the places where she has written her diary, they could catch hold of it.
I wish they had seen that earlier.
They never even bothered for their
See
children.
how parents are responsible.
Parents have to be more careful with their children.
And do you think they should teach the children about safe touch and
A wrong touch.
wrong touch?
See, they have to teach them with a teddy bear or whatever it is, even at the age of 2. If a person tries to take the child and keep it on his laps, and tries to touch something wrong, the child should be able to say no.
Express, yes.
Yes, because that's why the child should be taught which is the right touch, where somebody can touch, where somebody should not touch, and what is wrong if somebody does that, when somebody violates her boundary, where she has to do and what she has to do, whom she has to inform, and what is the exact phone number. And you know, many children are trafficked across the borders.
And they are kidnapped from school or somewhere in the garden when they are playing.
Yeah, most vulnerable and innocent children are kidnapped.
So do you think that the children should be given a password, that if somebody calls them and says, you know, your mother sent me to get you, then the child can ask what's the password, and if they are not able to say,
Many children are saved because of that.
yes.
Yes, it's
I
a
think
very important
these
thing.
are very simple things that parents can practice and teach children that these are very important. Don't just go with anybody who offers you a sweet and smile. You have seen them at home, or even if you have seen them with your parents, don't go unless they know the password.
Yes, even sometimes cousin brothers, they call themselves as brothers, they call themselves as sisters or fathers or uncles, and they abuse because it's a selfish world and it's a cruel world, and you have to be careful. So you asked me one question, like what are the different types of child abuse? Physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. In the similar way what we spoke in domestic violence, sometimes physical abuse, when parents also, when they do it, the child gets so much affected. And emotional abuse, all the time you are like a dog, you are like a monkey, and
or comparing the child with somebody
another
else.
child. See, that person's children has scored very high marks. You don't have any knowledge, you don't sit and study, and we put down our children.
And also some kind of curses are pronounced, like you'll never amount to anything, you are a stupid donkey, you will not make it in life, and you know, they don't mean it,
But it affects.
Yeah, it's like
because
a curse.
It's not only a curse, the child's mind, it gets reinforced,
Yes.
reinforced.
Yes.
And finally it sees itself as worthless.
Yes.
It sees itself, God has made a child so significant, so worthful. And he says that I have put my image in you. Even when you are in mother's womb, I knew you. But now you call it, you connect it to an animal and you call you're a worthless, you're a waste. It is like marring whatever the image of God in the child.
Right.
Because the child has no one else to look to. He has only your parents. So parents have to be very, very careful.
Right.
At this juncture, I remember one story, because if you are not a careful parent, you are developing many types of Hitlers and Stalins. Because you know, Hitler's father was a ruthless fellow. Hitler was an illegitimate child.
Okay.
He used to hit Hitler like anything. And many times his mother used to fall on him and take the hittings. And once Hitler was telling to his secretary that his father hit him so badly, he stopped crying and he started counting how many times. And it came to 35 times.
Okay.
So that within him made him to hate. And you know, Stalin's father was an alcoholic. And Stalin became a very great dictator who killed his own people. And you know, once when he took a chicken and before everyone he wanted to demonstrate them, he removed its feathers.
Oh, from a live chicken.
From a live chicken, and he was moving. And then slowly after removing the full feather, the chicken was feeling very cold. So he put the chicken under his leg and he took little grains of food and he started putting the grains. The chicken was following him. So he said, you remove everything from the people and they will follow you.
Oh.
So that's what he says. You trample their boundary, but they still follow you. He was so cruel. He was so evil because in his younger days, it was.
He experienced such severe abuse.
That's what, and you know, there's a great study by US Department of Justice. Being violated or abused or even neglected as a child makes them to be criminals.
Yes.
They end up as a juvenile. The percentage is 59%. To become an adult criminal, it is 28%. And to become a violent criminal, it is 20%.
Okay.
So if you are abused as a child or neglected as a child, they say you end up in jail. So they say around 1 in 20 babies might spend some time in jail. And Robin Kerr Moss, he has written a beautiful book, Ghost from the Nursery. He says that many of these children are criminals because you abuse them at their childhood and rob their beautiful childhood.
Children are at risk doubly because the abuser is often the one who is supposed to protect and comfort the child.
Yes.
So where can the child go? So the child is doubly at risk. And the child has these memories refreshed again and again because the child is interacting with that abuser every day in a normal situation. So please tell us the impact of such experiences on these children.
They conducted a study in US. It's called Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. Being abused as a child, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, seeing your parent getting abused, domestic violence.
Yes.
And then seeing your parent as an alcoholic,
Yes.
losing a parent. Those sort of things, like 10 adverse experiences,
Right.
like neglected. No one is there to take care. And those sort of things they have numbered, and then they ask people to fill it. So if that number has become more than 4, they were prone to heart problems.
I see.
And many of these people who are more than 4 or 5, they were prone to suicidal tendencies. They were prone to alcoholics, drug addicts,
Okay.
and then even they were prone to become criminals. Many of them were depressive patients. It
Yes.
searches for a co-regulating parent or a co-regulating teacher or somebody.
Yes.
But if you don't get anybody to regulate your emotions, and what you do, some of the children, they regulate by themselves by shouting, by throwing things.
Yes. Tantrums.
Tantrums, temper tantrums. Some of the children, they don't know what to do and they keep it within themselves.
They repress it.
They repress their emotions. They didn't know how to regulate their emotions. So when they become big, they become drug abusers. They show it on their wives, they show it on their children, and they show it everywhere.
In Psalm 127 verses 3 to 5 it reads, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their opponents in court. And this is how we should look at children. But look at the way some children are treated. It's really sad. When children are getting abused somewhere, there are some red flags. What are these signs that they exhibit?
Children, they sometimes bedwet.
Yes. Nail biting.
Yeah, nail biting. And they have some problems in academic. They become withdrawn.
Yes.
Some of the children isolate themselves. They have flashbacks. And then they have difficulty in concentrating. And they also disassociate themselves from everything. They become aloof. They become themselves isolated. They cannot study. You can easily find out a child all the time bubbling with happiness.
Suddenly shows a change.
He is dissociating itself.
Right.
And they are all the time in anxiety, in depression. You can see a fear in their face. If you are a parent who is so close to them, can't you find out?
Of course.
That is the reason a parent and a child should have some time every day to speak out. We say actually it's a best time, family prayer time. Every day have a time for your family. Pray together,
Yes.
sit together,
Right.
discuss with the children.
Yes.
What are their problems? Discuss even your problems with the children. It's a very beautiful environment.
Of
God
course.
has given a family with children, father and mother, to speak to one another, to
Yes.
discuss with one another,
Right.
so that you have a shared tendency. Come home, see TV, work on your laptop, do your WhatsApp, and then
The
go back
TV
to
becomes
sleep.
the teacher, not the parents.
Yes.
You should let them bloom under you and not make them stumble, right? Because Jesus said in Matthew 18:6, He said, if anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea.
Yes.
Tell us, what are the factors that affect child abuse?
Factors is mainly vulnerability. A child is vulnerable and innocence. They
Right.
don't know whether, and then they don't feel whom to confide. Many of the children, right now they are into pornography.
Yes.
And the parents don't understand when they lock the room and work on their computer, you can go and spy out. The parents don't do spying
Yes.
out.
Yes.
Because teenagers, they don't know themselves, they cannot understand.
You are drawing the boundaries for them.
Yes.
It's always safe for them to have that boundary. They know this line I cannot cross. It's not because my mother told me or my father told me. It's because the Bible says that this is right and this
Yes.
is wrong. So those kind of boundaries we can tell our children. We can sit with them and draw the boundaries. Then they don't resent the boundaries. Instead of imposing it upon them, you can just sit with them and say, what do you think we should do? And do you think it's a good idea to do it this way, or what's your opinion? And then they themselves will come out with it, because you have already put in all these principles in them, right?
Yes.
Does child abuse affect the growth of the child?
Terribly. It affects your brain. It is based
Yes,
on
yes.
what age you are getting affected and how long you were exposed to abuse. And if it's a sexual abuse, adult victims of sexual abuse, they either become so angry at the world outside, or they become so soft at the world outside, or they keep to themselves and end up in diseases, all sort of problems.
Yes.
So if you have to counsel an adult victim, you might have to say that it's not your fault. You're not at wrong.
Don't blame yourself or have guilt feelings.
Yes, if some children who are raped at young age, they believe that they are in some sense responsible
Yes.
for that rape.
Or that they are not pure anymore.
Yes, so that's why you have to, one child, she said that God gave her a vision that she was dressed up beautifully in white and she was walking hand in hand with Jesus.
Wow.
So she was telling that helped her to come out of the feeling that she was so unholy, because it's not your fault. Somebody has trampled upon
Yes,
the boundary,
exactly.
and somebody has done wrong on
How
you.
did Jesus deal with the woman caught in adultery? He was so
Yes.
kind to her and he forgave her sins.
He never even blamed her.
No.
So, but the society does opposite. Many times you have to face a society. So, might be you have to tell them there are good people, there are bad people. So, you should not worry about what people say about you. You have to think about what God says about
Yes,
you.
right.
In God's eyes, how important you are, how unique you are, and how loving He feels about
Yes.
you.
Rahab became one of the ancestors of Jesus in his lineage.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. You can direct her to Jesus, or with your love. It needs
Yes.
love, it needs trust, it needs
Right.
someone to care.
Yes.
So that is the way
You
we
can
do.
be the hands and feet of Jesus, the
Yes.
mouth of Jesus.
Yes.
You can let Him bless this child through you.
Yes.
Child marriage is another evil, especially in our country. In the rural areas, I find that many of the children are married away even before they become an adult, and then they suffer throughout their lives. What are the adverse effects of child marriage?
I think we should educate our world. See, if we educate a woman, we educate a nation. That's what Gandhi said. If you educate a man, you educate a man.
Yes.
If you educate a woman, you educate
Get
a
a
whole
family
nation and a family.
yes.
So that's why women education and child education, every child needs to be educated.
And another evil we have here is honor killing, especially in our city. We read in the newspapers so often a girl marries out of the community and the parents themselves do honor killing. They kill the girl just to keep up their honor. How can we address this kind of evils that are going on?
I think caste system has played a very major role, and we have to fight against this caste system. And one more thing is, like as you said, that their family honor is becoming more important than an individual. See, an
Right.
individual is made in the image of God. Recently it happened, Cincinnati Zoo, you might have heard. In that one they have a big gorilla enclosure. So a mother was playing with a child and she was just looking into some other children. Meanwhile, the child fell into the gorilla
Yes,
encounter.
yes.
When gorilla was so aggressive, it started catching the child and it started throwing here and there with the child. One person got so tensed up and he killed that gorilla.
Oh.
They thought that if they tranquilize it, it will take some time before that the child can get killed. So that's why they killed the gorilla.
Okay.
That is from the zoo authorities. But what happened, later all the animal supporters got so angry. They all joined together. They fought against the zoo authorities for killing a gorilla. So I was wondering, which is important, a gorilla or a human being?
Yes.
Who is made in the image of
Exactly.
God? See,
In our city, sometimes they find mad dogs who go and bite children who are playing on the streets. So if they kill the mad dog, the animal protectors, they go up in arms and they fight like hell. But the thing is, the children, they are being bitten by these mad dogs and they are not bothered about that.
And this abortion, how many in US right now you are legally allowed, and they have big
Yes.
medical centers for abortions, and for that no one fights
No.
for it. How
Because
many-
a child has no rights.
So that's what I'm telling here. Was you say honor killing, for honor's sake you can kill an image of God.
A person gets, say, 2 daughters and no sons, they'll say, oh, poor you, don't worry, next time. I'm a proud grandmother of 5 granddaughters. I don't have a grandson and I don't regret it one bit. Because to me, grandsons, granddaughters, all are the same. They are all made in the image of God. And granddaughters are lovely. But why do people always want sons? And they just feel so disappointed if they don't have a son.
It was there like that because of dowry system, and
maybe.
because they believe that
Right.
the girl after marriage is going to somebody's house.
Okay.
So they believe it's an entitlement, as I said. A girl belongs to someone's family, and the man who is marrying her thinks she is my possession, and I am getting her. She no more belongs to her
Whereas
parents.
when my son will bring another girl,
Bring
he will
another
become my
girl.
property.
Yes, he will also bring along
Okay.
with her some cows,
Dowry.
some houses, some dowries.
Yeah.
If I get a son, I am becoming rich.
So it's a business.
It's a business. It's nothing more than it's totally selfish.
Oh. But we have to pray that the society, the people, the community will change all these ideas, and they will look at people as individuals made in God's image,
Yes.
and not all these wrong ideas which Satan has brought into this
Yes,
world.
very
This
important.
beautiful cosmos and the beautiful cosmic story is being twisted and turned into different things what God never intended it to be, right?
Yeah, but that
Yes.
can be changed, because I remember when I was in college, people used to think that cigarette smoking is a style, and they used to send out the flames and all shapes. So they think that somebody, whoever is male, is smoking, you feel so great to look at them. But now the image is shattered because a change society brought into. So that same way, you should bring a great change.
Yes.
You should shame the people who are abusing a
Exactly.
child. You should shame the rapist who thinks he's entitled. He has the power to do anything on his victim. You shame the person who is a wife abuser. You should shame the person who is abusing his own child. So, and you should tell them that this is totally wrong. It's unacceptable, and he can be jailed.
Yes.
He needs punishment. He needs change. So when the whole society takes up the stick and say no one can abuse anybody else, change comes.
Yes. And let there be God's kingdom here on earth. Thank you so much, Dr. Christie. This has been such a rewarding season with you.
Thank you.
May God bless you and use you more and more as you travel the length and breadth of this country.
Thank you.
Thank you. Friends, counseling is a powerful tool for helping victims of child abuse get to safety and healing. Abused children need counseling in order to move past their traumatic experiences. Left untreated, physically and emotionally abused children carry the emotional and physical scars of the abuse into adulthood. When this type of trauma is left to itself, it may manifest in adulthood in the form of lost jobs, broken relationships, substance abuse, and other unhealthy behavior. We have come to the end of this season of Probe. We hope that the Lord of the universe will be at your side to give you wisdom and understanding in these matters. God bless you.
Are you inspired to save children from abuse? Well, we have come to the end of the last episode of this season. If you have enjoyed this season of Probe, write to us at writetoprobe@gmail.com. Goodbye and God bless.
Leadership is just not about holding a position of responsibility.
By being a servant leader, we can achieve great things not only inside the church or in ministry, but also in the world outside.
What is your personal definition of leadership, be it in a family or in an organization or in the church or anywhere?
It is this giving the people a direction in which they should be going and where they influence people.
Could you tell us how exactly God wanted the leader to be selected?
All of us look to great leaders, and we would like to be leaders in whatever capacity possible.
You got to prove